This is strategic HRM in place of strategic management. We'll start strategic management next week. We just try to wrap up the last learning outcome, the learning outcome 5, so that learners can use this to work on their assignment brief. If you remember, your assignment brief, part of the question comes from this learning outcome. So we are looking at theories of leadership and management and how they support organizational strategy from the strategic HRM perspective. So the first theory we start with is the theory some people call scientific management, or others call it after the founder, Taylorism. It was founded by Frederick Taylor. And basically I argue that you need to manage scientifically. You need to break down tasks into break down a job into small tasks using scientific measurements like how much time and how many activities are required, so you can actually measure each task in a job. And so instead of one person, for instance, building a whole table as a carpenter, you can break it down and say, well, you need to build 4 legs and you need to build the flat surface. And to build 1 leg requires so many activities and it can be done in X amount of time. Then what they now ended up doing, Henry Ford took this idea of scientific management or Taylorism to his assembly line, manufacturing cars. So we now have the start of assembly line production, where each aspect of the table's leg will be done by a different person rather than one carpenter building the whole table. So it was faster, more efficient production. However, it also meant the idea of scientific management, the leadership or management style that emphasizes a lot of control and supervision of the employee, a lot of surveillance, and payment by piece rate. For each thing you do, you get paid, right, rather than a fixed salary to boost their productivity. So scientific management is very similar to an autocratic management style. Often goes with an autocratic management style in some cases, where we expect the manager or the leader to be the one to take decisions and to give orders. Employees merely receive the orders; they are not consulted. And in terms of motivation theory, there's a theory by McGregor called Theory X and Theory Y. Theory X, you basically look at your worker and wanting to avoid responsibility. Let's see if we still have 5 exams. Okay, we still have 5 exams here. Yeah. So this approach, a lot of workers tend to dislike it because it makes the job very repetitive and boring and monotonous. You're doing just one aspect of the job, you don't see the final product, you just keep repeating that same thing and you become a specialist in it. And you're closely supervised and monitored, so you can't really talk with your colleagues and discuss with them, during work hours and so on. So an alternative leadership style, management style proposed by Elton Mayo. Elton Mayo developed what's called the Human Relations School of Management. What they did was he went to a big company in Chicago called Western Electric for an experiment. So they were trying to find out how workers' productivity would change if they started changing the amount of light they get to do their work in the factory and other working conditions. And they expected that as they reduced the lighting and as they made the working conditions worse, that workers would actually, productivity of the workers will actually go down. So this was their expectation. In lighting conditions there, human relations, and key person there being Elton. But they had a surprise when they conducted this experiment, very famous Western Electric experiment, and they found out that when the lighting situation got worse, working conditions got worse, instead of productivity to go down, productivity actually increased or didn't go down, or in many cases even became better. So they have to go back to find out and discuss with the workers with them and find out why the productivity increased or actually didn't go down. And so we found out three key things. The first thing there is, as a result of conducting the experiment, managers were forced to communicate better with workers. They were forced to explain the job that was expected of the workers, the task. They were expected to explain the experiment they were conducting and why it was important, and so on and so forth. So communication between managers and employees increased. Also communication. So this is a lot of the employees. Yeah. Sorry, is there any question? Okay, so
Just not from my side.
so I think we have some background noise. Is that okay? All right, thanks.
I don't. I think not from my side.
Not from your side? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So as workers were also talking to themselves while working and discussing the experiment and so on. Second thing they noticed was greater manager involvement. As a result of more contact with employees, managers got employees better at a personal level, their family, their children, their motivations at work, their career aspirations, that kind of thing. And we are having those conversations with the employees. So we saw greater management involvement. And we saw that the workers were now asked to work in groups because they have been put in groups to study them. This group have good lighting conditions. This group will change the lighting conditions and work conditions become worse. So they are now working in groups, in social groups where they could discuss and support each other socially and psychologically. So Mayo concluded that this new management style, which they call it human relations style, focused on human relationships at work and was a better management style than the opposite, which was Taylorism or scientific management, where you basically treat workers like robots or machines and try to just make them focus on a boring, repetitive task, not have social interaction, and work to very close time limits, close supervision to improve productivity. In this case, you treat them as social beings. They work in groups, they talk with each other, talk with their managers. Managers are involved in them, have a lot of discussions around career aspirations and work-life balance and family with them. So they found that the workers were more engaged and more productive. So these are an alternative management style, the two being, one is being scientific management, the other one being human relations. And then in terms of motivation theory, a famous motivation theory, again coming out of this whole human relations trend in management style, is the one by Maslow, also Herzberg and the other motivation theory. But we'll look at very closely at the motivation theory by Abraham Maslow, probably the most famous theory of motivation. And what Maslow basically said was that there's a hierarchy of needs. He called it a hierarchy of needs, right? You see often a triangle like this or a table like this. And what he said is that workers, human beings generally, tend to want to satisfy the things at the bottom first. That's their priority, what they call the psychological needs. Air to breathe, food, water, shelter, sleep, clothing, and so on. If any of these are threatened, that becomes the first priority. That becomes your highest motivation, right? Food, if you don't have food, you struggle to do anything, get food, water, and so on. And then very closely followed by that are safety needs. If for any reason you feel you're in danger, you need to run away or protect yourself and so on, your health, your well-being. So if you think about it in a workplace, workers are motivated by the need to earn a salary to pay for food and water and accommodation, clothing, and also their well-being at work in terms of they want to go to a place that they know that they will come back safe and alive and not have an accident at work, industrial accident, or bad working conditions where they can fall in, right? And they will be safe. When those needs are met, then the next thing that motivates workers now becomes things like love and belonging, family, friendship, intimacy, sense of connection. So goes back to the whole human relations thing of you don't just want to go to work to earn money to pay for food and clothing and house rent. You also want to go to work to a place you enjoy going to work, where you have friends at work, where you can chat, you can discuss, because human beings are social beings, they need human relationships. And then after that, when that need is satisfied, the next need on the hierarchy now emerges, which is esteem needs. You want to go to work and get some recognition, some self-esteem, some status recognition, respect. You want to be acknowledged, at work as being a good worker and so on. So this is where managers can now play a role in giving feedback and saying, oh, this is fantastic, or even organizations can do Employee of the Month awards and so on and so forth. So you now find that becomes a motivation when the other lower needs have been met, and then finally the self-actualization needs, the desire to progress, to achieve your dreams, to be what you can, to achieve your full potential. And often in the workplace that takes the shape of workers wanting promotion, to climb the organizational hierarchy, the career ladder, to achieve sometimes higher positions. Right? So these are the things that motivate workers. Basic psychological needs of safety needs in the first place. And you need to provide for that. Then after that, the sense of belonging and love, then esteem and self-actualization. So these are core motivation theories. Another important motivation theory is the one by Frederick Herzberg. He basically said that there are several things that motivate, but we need to look at them in two categories, what he called motivators and hygiene factors. So he said that in other theories considered everything to be motivators, but Herzberg said no. Some of these to him are merely hygiene factors. So a hygiene factor to him is something that if it's absent, it will demotivate. Classic example being your salary, your pay. If you are not paid to the amount, to the level you thought you would, you want, or you deserve, you will be demotivated at work and your productivity will drop. But where it has been met, where it's provided for, it doesn't necessarily give a positive motivation. Right? It's just there. So the argument he makes is when you increase someone's salary for the first few months, you see that they are more productive and happier, more satisfied. But it wears off very fast because money is a hygiene factor. It simply is something that if they find out that they are paid less than their colleagues in a similar role, they get very demotivated and productivity drop. But as long as they feel they are paid, what the job deserves or what their peers are being paid, their colleagues are being paid, then it doesn't necessarily motivate them to give their best at work. So only things that will motivate in that positive manner, he will consider to be motivators, right? And we'll now start talking about the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation being things that motivate you but they come from outside. So for instance, feedback from your manager saying, oh, that's great, that's a fantastic job, can motivate you to keep doing, high level performance. Intrinsic motivation being something from within yourself that will motivate you. So when you think about it and say, oh, I really am motivated to achieve my dream, right? My dream is to become the next Bill Gates. That's an intrinsic motivating factor. It comes from inside. So motivators are concerned with the actual job itself. You can see that there. Let me just annotate that. as opposed to hygiene factors. So how interesting the work is and how much opportunity it gives for extra responsibility, recognition, and promotion. To him, these are the things that you can say are positive motivators. Hygiene factors, which their absence will demotivate, but their presence doesn't necessarily positively motivate, are things that surround the job rather than the job itself, right? So, for instance, your pay and safe working conditions. But the actual job itself, how interesting is the job? How challenging is the job? Does the job give you opportunity to make decisions and take extra responsibility? Those will be the motivators, the positive motivators, right? And in terms of applying this, a lot of managers now said, well, we've been focusing on the wrong things before. We've been focusing on hygiene factors like increasing salaries, but they only have a short-term impact. For more long-term impact, let's focus on positive motivators, and they start doing things like job enlargement and job enrichment, giving people more responsibilities or more variety in tasks that they do at work, which now allows them to be motivated. Those are key motivations. Now, theories. So you need to link this always back to your assignment questions. Remember, in the assignment question, you have this London and European club and so on and so forth, and you need to come up with ideas for leadership and management for the workforce. Right. So these are the things you've looked at. Do you want to adopt a scientific management approach? Want to adopt a human relations management approach? What type of approach to motivation would you consider? These are things you can draw on in your answer. So, this has to do a bit with change management, and from Henry Mintzberg, another professor of management from America, his contingency model. I'll look at that very quickly. And basically, he's talking about change management, right? It looks at two dimensions: how complex is the organization and its operating environment, how complex the organization operating environment, and then the speed of change and the mode of change, if you need to change, because we know organizations encounter things that they need to cope with in terms of change. So in terms of developing your strategy, in terms of applying your leadership style in a change management situation, what are your options? And this gives us 4 options. So where is an environment of low complexity and slow change? Then you can do a rational model. So that's your top left hand corner. I'm going to take that so you can see the rational model. So these are for, if your organization is a relatively stable environment, then you can develop a rational strategy where you argue based on logic and pros and cons, benefits, advantages, disadvantages, and convince your workers, persuade them, and implement in that manner. So it's a very rational approach. Where you have again low complexity, but this time fast speed of change necessary. You need to respond very quickly to something that happened very suddenly in your environment. Let's say a new regulation and you have only 3 months or 6 months to comply or whatever. Then we are talking about using a strategy of leadership and change management called formulators implement, right? The top managers or top leaders are the formulators. They have to formulate their strategy, formulate the solution to the problem, and quickly implement it in a very top-down manner, right? So this is for where you have a high pace of change and the environment is low complexity, although there's a little degree of uncertainty in it, right? Where you have more complexity, much more complex environment, much more uncertainty, but you still have time to implement the change. You're not under pressure to implement the change. Then we'll look at implementers formulate. This time you have more time to consult employees at the bottom of the organization. So that is now the implementers rather than the formulators, and they can suggest ideas. So the implementers, people at the middle and bottom of the organization, can suggest and formulate ideas. Unlike the other one we looked at, where the formulators, who are at the top of the organization, have to push it down to the implementers. And then the last approach, which we call the radical approach, you have a environment of high complexity and very fast pace of change required. Right? You cannot use any rational model or strategy here, and you have to be quite radical and sometimes do things that are out of the box and radical. Right? And in this case, sometimes it's not even a question of, it may just be the CEO taking the decision. You may not even consult much wider around his executive team and so on and so forth. You have to be quite fast. These are different models of approaching change management from a leadership perspective, leadership and strategy perspective, depending on your situation. So, any questions so far? Okay. So we'll continue. We're now looking at.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
So we're now looking at things like the difference between your mission and corporate objectives and functional objectives and things like that. Right? So your mission, your value, and your objectives. What do we mean by these terms? Right? So the aim is the overriding goal or objective of the business. So that's what's at the top. It can be simply to provide an IT service to society, or it can be to improve the health of people or whatever, depending on the type of business you are. But something very, very short and sharp and is a very high level objective of the business, right? But it doesn't really tell us much. So then we now need to start looking at having a mission statement, which now starts giving, from a strategic perspective, what the organization does, telling us a little bit more about their strategy, how they intend to achieve that goal, and so on. So this is a good slide. It says that your mission statement will restate the overall purpose of the business with a bit of insight into the strategy, how you intend to achieve this. Your vision will paint a picture of what you want to see, your aspiration for the business maybe in 10 years, right? So usually you can do like a 10-year vision. Some people can do a 20-year vision. And we'll say, okay, in 10 years, if we pursue this mission successfully, this is the impact we expect to have on society, on organizations, on employees, on stakeholders. So you paint a picture, and the vision is more of a motivational tool to win hearts and minds, whereas the mission statement is more of a strategic communication to very briefly summarize your mission and your strategy for achieving it, but not necessarily to persuade you in that manner, to win your hearts and minds. The vision now paints the statement and say, well, if you are successful in the next 10 years, this is the kind of positive impact we have on all stakeholders. Very persuasive. Wins hearts and minds. Then you can break that down into objectives, corporate objectives. So you now have specific objectives saying we need to have turnover of X million pounds, profit of X million pounds, shareholder price value needs to increase by X percentage. You now start having corporate goals and under that. And we've already said the aim is a very high level general statement of what business you grow into. So you find that mostly organizations have a set of these things. They will usually have a mission statement, a vision statement, a set of core values, a set of corporate objectives, and corporate values, right? And they usually use this as a leadership tool and strategic management tool to ensure that employees are aligned to what the organization is trying to achieve, because the employees further down in the organization can lose sight of why it is they are doing this job, why it is they are making this desk or chair or programming this piece of IT software. They need to have the bigger picture in mind and see how what they are doing translates or contributes to what the organization overall is trying to do. And that also helps them in their day-to-day job, because they can also, I can do this job better because I now know why I'm doing this job. Or actually this job, some aspects of it I can streamline because it's not really in line with our objective or mission. Right? Or the way I'm doing this job is not in line with our core values. I should be more considerate, I should be more empathic. Those are our core values, and I'm doing this job but not in this manner. So that's why these things are useful for organizations as leadership tools to influence followers lower down in the organization, especially. So we have, like I said, your set of your purpose or mission statement, your set of core values, what the organization believes in, what you stand for, and is more in line with ethical values. Sometimes you break that down further into specific standards and behaviors and even HR policies. And then we also have your mission, which will influence or reflect your strategy and scope of operations. So there are slides there you can read. I've explained most of all of these things, but you can read them. But here you can see all these HR policies we've been talking about, how they are aligned to the organization's mission and vision and values. Your HR policy, whether it's on grievance or work-life balance or maternity leave, are trying to give life to either the organization's mission or vision or a core value. So it's quite important. Now let's look a bit at structure of organizations. We've already started touching aspects of structure in previous sessions, but now we'll look at it in a bit more detail. So the first common organizational structure is what we call the functional structure. Many organizations choose to structure themselves like this. So at the top you have the board of directors and senior and executive team, so the top leaders, senior leaders, and beneath that you have each function or each department, as some people will say, but it's basically each function. So you have a marketing function, marketing department. They have to do everything marketing for the whole organization across the UK. For instance, let's say it's a UK-based organization. You have a production department, they handle production, finance, an accounting department, HR department, and so on. Right? So when you group everybody based on their profession, discipline, or specialization, and they have to work with each other like that, then that's a functional structure. A different structure is what we call a divisional structure, right? So at the top again, you have your senior leaders, your board of directors, CEO, and so on and so forth. But this time you now have divisions, and each division will have its own support function. So let's say you are grouping these things into divisions based on let's say you are grouping this based on production, right? Yeah, let's say you are grouping these divisions based on production. Let's say you are a car manufacturing company and you manufacture cars, you manufacture trucks, and you manufacture motorcycles, right? So those could be your three divisions. So you have your car manufacturing line division, truck manufacturing, and motorcycle manufacturing. And then within the car manufacturing, if you have his own HR support team, his own marketing support team, his own production team, right? So the HR there is geared solely towards supporting this car manufacturing, right? And they work embedded closely with the others. The truck division, we have his own HR, his own marketing, his own production. And the motorcycle, we have his own. And they will be specialists in supporting just motorcycle production, right? And everything to do with the motorcycle workforce and so on. The marketers will be experts in just marketing motorcycles, right? So here you have the functions embedded within divisions. And some organizations find this structure more effective for them, right? Another way you could structure these divisions instead of doing it by product is you could do it by geography. So you could have Europe as division 1, you could have North America as Division 2, and then you could have MENA, Middle East and North Africa as Division 3. Right? So within Europe, you have a HR function. It's closer to them. You don't have to go to headquarters in America for HR decisions. You have your own HR support, your own marketing, who knows the European market, your own production plan, and factories within Europe following European employment legislation and so on. Right? Within North America, the same thing. You have HR team who know the North American HR strategies, policies, employment law. You know people who know their North American market, so you have your marketing team very well there. You have your production facility following North American health and safety and production standards, right? And then you come to Asia, you have an Asian division. Come to Africa, you have an African division, right? And decision making is faster there because you don't have to always go to headquarters for decision on HR or marketing or production. It's embedded there. So that's another way of doing divisions, by embedding your functions there according to geography. We've looked at production line. Some people even do by customer segments. You know, your high value customers, your low value customers like banks. You could have a division targeted at high value customers. You can say Barclays Wealth, right? But Barclays Retail will be for off the streets, low value customers and so on, because they have different products and services for them, different service levels. So this is another way of structuring. We've looked at the functional structure. We've looked at the divisional structure. Matrix structure, these are more for project-based organizations where you want to do projects or bring people from different functions to work together. So you could have production or project-based on your left-hand side. So you could have project A, project B, project C, or you could have production A, production B, production C, and then everybody has reports to at least 2 managers. So if you look at it there, the employee here in the middle will report is from the production department working on this product, right? So he's working on product A from the production manager department has been loaned to in that team. We've also got somebody from the sales department, but also reporting to production manager A, working on production team. We need a finance person for production A. So finance has given us 1 person. We need somebody from research and development. So we've got 4 people for production A. So they all report to their original department, line managers, finance, R&D, sales, but they also report to production manager A. So because they're reporting to 2 people, this is what we call a matrix structure. And this is good where you need to bring cross-functional teams together with different insights from different functional areas, different disciplines to deliver a project or a product that requires different skill sets. So again, very popular structure in team-based organizations, project-based organizations. And then we have so those are the types of structures. Then we also have the idea of flat and tall structures, which go into concepts like your span of control and your scalar check and so on. Tall organization is where you have different hierarchies, different levels of managers, right? And each of them has a shorter span of control, that number of people they are supervising, right? But then you have different many levels of management, but each person is just supervising, in this case, 2 people, right? So you have more time to supervise and manage. For a flatter organization, imagine we remove 2 of these layers. So we just have the person at the top here, and then is managing everybody else. So we have almost 10 people reporting to him, right? So you have reduced the time it takes to take decisions because many levels of managers don't have to approve. However, the disadvantage of this is, does this manager really have the time to manage 10 different people? Pay attention to them, support them. So that's the advantage and disadvantage of either having a tall or a flat structure. And then in terms of decision making, we talk about centralized and decentralized structures. Centralized structures are where decisions are always taken at the center, usually the headquarters. And decentralized structures are where the branches or subsidiaries or lower levels are allowed to take the decisions, whether it's a decision decision on how much to charge the customer or product to make, or how to go about producing the product or whatever. Right. So centralized, you always have to go back to the center, usually the headquarters, for approval or for decision making. So again, each one has an advantage and disadvantage, where you need to keep tight control of your finances and quality standards, and you want to centralize. Decentralize, the advantage is where you want to be flexible and respond to local markets faster. And you allow people closer to those markets to take quick decisions. Right. So each thing we are telling you here, we're not saying this is the best. Whether it's tall or flat, there's advantage or disadvantage. Whether it's centralized or decentralized, there's an advantage or disadvantage. Right. So in terms of monitoring and evaluation, your leadership monitoring and evaluating your leadership strategy, you have key questions you can ask. What business are we into? What do our customers value, so that we know that's what we are producing and we are meeting their satisfying our customers. What business should we be in? Are we doing the right type of business, or should we be doing something else? Are we making phones? When instead of making phones, we should be developing apps for those phones and let somebody else be making the phones. And what will our business be in the future? So those are key things you use to monitor your mission, vision, strategy as a top leader, senior leader. And then obviously HR plays a role in this. We've defined HR before, and we've mentioned the idea of hard and soft HR. Hard HR being you treat employees as a cost and want to squeeze as much effort out of them as you can. You monitor, control them very tightly. Usually you do some sort of terrorism or scientific management approach. Soft HR draws more on human relations style, consulting employees and giving them room to socialize with each other. And rather than treating them as a cost, you treat them as an investment and spend some time on them, invest in their training and career development. And then you see that you can also get productivity out of them in that manner, rather than controlling them, so supervising them tightly to get production. So either way you can get higher productivity, depends on your approach and your circumstances. So this just go on to summarize hard and soft HR, and you can read them up by yourself. But you will see that some go with certain types of structure. For instance, the hard HRM, you find it quite common in all organizations, and organizations that tend to maybe centralize decision making. So, and an autocratic style of leadership. It tends to go, not always, but that's the tendency. And you can see the same for soft HRM. Right. So then we'll come to the idea of the balanced scorecard. So in terms of measuring performance, you can read off this slide yourself, but this diagram is quite good. Most organizations measure based on key things. What's your vision and strategy? How do you measure? Four key things. One, there will be financial measurements. Two, we'll measure your customer satisfaction. Are we treating customers well? Three, internal processes. How efficient are production and other internal processes? Four, organizational capacity, especially HR. Are we developing our employees right? Are we treating them right? So it's called a balanced scorecard because you want to keep all these four things in balance. In the past, people used to concentrate just on the financial aspects, and so they are ignoring customers, ignoring internal efficiency and quality processes, and ignoring developing our organizational capacity and HR. So now we are saying no, you should have measures for all four to keep them in balance. So these are the key concepts for top leaders especially. And then this just goes on to give you some basic idea about what we mean when we say managers. So these are some classic ideas about management according to Henry Fayol. Managing involves planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and controlling. So whenever you are doing this, you are in a sense managing. And Peter Drucker goes on to talk about things like developing people and organizing the group and motivating as being key aspects of management. So we've covered the key leadership and management theories and how they link to organization strategy and how they link to HRM, and this will help you answer your assignment question. Any questions so far?
Actually, I lost connection, internet connection. So I just have one thing I was not able to understand. I mean, can you repeat the difference between the flat and the tall structure? I mean, what advantages for the flat structure? How flat structure is soft, and the tall structure is the hard HRM approach.
Yeah, let's look at that. Flat structure. I'm just trying to get the diagram so you can see, compare the two, because the slide only has one there. Let's see if we can get the diagram that compares the two. Right, let's use this one from. Right, so I don't know if you can see this. So the structure at the top is a tall structure, right? It has how many layers? One, the CEO, two people below him, that's second layer. Then this layer, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers. Can you see that? 2 people report to CEO, each of them have 2 people who report, each of them have 2 people, and so on. 6 layers in the structure, right? The disadvantage of this is decisions can be quite slow and bureaucratic. Somebody at the bottom is asking a question, and sometimes you have to pass it all the way up or most of the way up to get an answer, right? But the advantage of this is each person is supervising only 2 people or few people, so they can spend time to actually coach them, support them, manage them, monitor them, right? The flat structure, you see, we have only 3 layers here. Same number of employees, but only 3 layers. CEO, 3 people report to him, and each of those 3 have 4 people reporting to them, right? And then each of those 4 have. So it removes some layers. So decision making can be much faster, but the disadvantage here being that we are not sure if each manager can give this required attention to so many people, managing so many people. So that's the basic argument between tall and flat structures, and we'll look at the diagram there. And then in terms of your...
But how flat is more soft actually? How can we say that flat is soft? I mean,
Sorry, is your question how it links to hard and soft HRM?
Do go to the next slide, where you mentioned that this soft HRM, it's flatter organization structure.
Yes. So,
yeah.
Not always, so there are always exceptions to the rule, right? At the core, soft HRM is about investing in your employees and using a more human relations style of leadership, more consultative social style. Hard HRM, looking at them as a cost expense, squeezing as much work out of them, using more of a tayloristic management, scientific management. But in terms of linking to structure, if you want to do human relations and get people to socialize and work in groups and enjoy themselves at work, therefore they'll be more productive, then you can have flatter structures that allow more people at the same level work in a group. Right? That's the idea. If you want hard HRM where you need to monitor very tightly and control very tightly, then you need a shorter span of control. A manager should be monitoring and controlling only 1 or 2 or 3 people. Cannot do that for 10 people effectively. So you tend towards a taller structure to have tighter levels of control, right? So that's the idea there. And also in the hard HRM, you have more an autocratic style of leadership where decisions are taken at the top. Soft HRM, more democratic type of leadership where you tend to consult your employees. So this is just trying to link different strategies of HRM, approaches to HRM, to your structure, to your leadership style, and so on. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think that's our class for today. And Based on this, now we've covered the 5 learning outcomes. We can focus on the assignment brief. Right?
Mm.
Right. So
Okay.
best of luck. We covered the assignment brief last week, so you know what. All right. Have a nice weekend.
I have
Yeah.
29.
Sorry. Any question?
No, I think assignment submission date is on 29th, right?
Yeah, 29th. I think you sent the information out.
Mm. All right. Okay. Okay.
All right. Best wishes. Take care.